Hey guys, it's Phil with MotoBeamer.com, and I'm here with Kyle at Performance Cycle here in Colorado. Kyle, thanks for being here.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. He works here, guys. I'm just here filming. I love it. So, look, here we are talking adventure bike tires today. We're going to get a good education from Kyle. We've got a lot of tires lined up that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk tire ratios, tire longevity, tire performance. It's going to be a fantastic video. If you have an adventure bike and you're wondering about adventure tires or even what's new for 2024, I think we got something special for them. We're going to talk that today. So Kyle, just so we establish some credibility, man, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Kyle. I've worked here for about 3 years now. Grown up in the state my whole life. I raced dirt bikes since I was about 5 years old. Recently got my pro license, did my first couple professional races this last year, and just like working in the industry. Going to school, trying to become a pilot, but that's the end goal. But dirt bikes will be like, dirt bikes and just anything motorsport related will probably be my passion for my whole life. So I just enjoy being around it.
So all of us that have our pro licenses, myself not included. No, but I think that's super cool to find that out about you. I think, you know, to go back to it, Kyle helped me this summer when I had the Motoz tires mounted on the BMW, and I had an issue inflating the tires or whatever. I rode all the way down here. Kyle pulled out all the gear, and we troubleshot everything. But you're just like, oh, this guy works at Performance Cycle. He's pretty cool. But like, lo and behold, a pro dirt bike racer. So also somebody that's very cool, very knowledgeable, somebody that knows the tire industry and knows these tires we're going to talk about. So with that, man, and let me just give you a chance real quick. Talk a little bit about Performance Cycle, because this is an amazing establishment. It's probably the biggest retail location that I've been in as far as tires go. They're all around us. You've got retail gear outside. Talk a little bit about the cycle and who you service and what you do here in Colorado.
Yeah, so Performance Cycle started in 1981. It's been family owned and operated ever since then. Don and Bernie, the owners, have been the ones running the show the whole time. Started off as a small service shop. Kind of branched away from that about 20 years ago. Stopped doing service and just changed to more of the retail sale kind of thing that they do now. So yeah, been in business over 40 years. Tires is obviously one of the things that we specialize in, but yeah, helmets, oils, pants, jerseys, jackets, like whatever you need for motorcycles, we probably got it.
Yeah, I've crushed my wallet in this place.
Yep, that happens.
One thing we should mention, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm not bringing my bike here to get my tires swapped out. Like, you have to bring the wheels to you guys, right?
Correct. Yeah, since we're not a full service shop anymore, we don't have the capabilities to take the tires or to take the wheels off the bike here. So you do have to take them off the bike and bring them in off the bike. You know, shove them in your car, bring them here. But only $30 per wheel if you bring it here, and as long as you buy everything from here, and it's usually like just a couple hour turnaround time too. Yeah,
I've had great luck here. Not great luck, but good service, good quality service. Just bringing the wheels down, getting them mounted in balance. Super fantastic. So with that, why don't we show them what we got? So what we have here is sort of a demo rack setup. We've got from least aggressive all the way to most aggressive, and also new for 2024 sort of adventure tires. We're not gonna like break everyone down in detail for 10 minutes, but let's just start off with the basics. I have an adventure bike. I don't know much about tires. I just bought it. Yesterday it came shod with some, whatever from the factory, and I come to you and I say, hey, I want to, do some dirt riding, this, and I got this cool adventure bike. It's a BMW, it's a whatever. What kind of tires do I need? What do we talk about? What's that conversation like?
Yeah, so one of the first questions I like to ask is what kind of riding you're doing, right? Because if you're gonna say, oh yeah, I'm doing, mostly street riding, I got a dirt driveway, that's the only time I hit dirt, like you're probably not gonna want something as aggressive as something like this. So that's kind of the first question, to kind of get an idea of how aggressive of a tire you're gonna want. So if you're doing mostly street, there's options for that. If you're doing mostly off-road, there's options for that. If you want a little bit of like a 50-50 mix, there's options for that too. So there's definitely a wide kind of variety. So I like to start with that question and then kind of just go from there.
And I think, because I say this from experience, guys, because, if you've been following the channel, you understand it, but I bought a 2021 BMW GS Adventure, and I think I have 25 years of riding motorcycles, but it's my first adventure bike. So your natural inclination, especially living in a state like Colorado, is I want to do some dirt riding. I want to do some off-road riding. Yeah. I'm not a dirt bike racer like you, but I think that's the desire, that's the inclination of a lot of guys. So maybe the bike probably doesn't come with tires that are suited for that. I think that might be a mistake. So for example, I bought the BMW came with 80/20 Michelins, the Anakees. I think it was something similar to these.
Okay.
and maybe not suited for, you know, the BDR, hardcore trails, right?
Yeah.
So is there a little bit of education that goes with that of like, hey man, you know, based on your riding, you got this big heavy bike, you might need a different tire to perform well?
For sure. Yeah. So if you got a big bike like a GSA and it comes with like, you know, pretty much full on street tires from the factory and you want to kind of change it up.
But there are so many options. I think that's the point of this video, guys. Let's make it easy for them. I think the first thing that we encounter is ratios. I've mentioned it, you've mentioned it, 80-20, 50-50, 70-30, whatever.
Yeah.
It should go without saying, but what do the ratios indicate?
So ratios indicate how much off-road versus how much road you're getting with your tires. So like an 80-20 is like an 80% off-road or 80% on-road, depending on how you look at it. 80% on-road, 20% off-road. 50-50 is like a, you know, 50% on-road, 50% off-road, and then you have, you know, your 80-20 more off-road, 80% off-road, 20% on-road. Kind of depends definitely on all of the manufacturers' websites. They'll kind of say like all their different tire models and kind of what sort of ratio they have, but that's basically it. It's just like kind of a percentage.
Does the type of ratio tire I get affect the longevity? Assuming, you know, because some guys are ham-fisted, some guys aren't, but like assuming all other things are equal, does an 80-20 tire versus a 50-50 versus a 70-30 the other side, is the longevity of the tire different?
Yeah, absolutely. So more of the dirt tires, it's going to be like a softer compound mostly, because if you're riding mostly on dirt roads or, you know, like single track, if you're getting like real gnarly on your KTM 890 or something like that, it's going to be a softer tire, like the rubber itself, so then you can kind of dig into the dirt and hook up a little bit better. Whereas something more like this, like these two, are going to have more of a stiffer kind of compound, so they wear better on the road because they're meant a little more for the road. So you get more longevity and more like better wear, probably more mileage out of something like this. But if you want more miles per mile, I guess, doing off-road, you'll probably want something a little more aggressive like that.
Nice. So, and either or, out here in Colorado, especially last year, if you remember, we got poured on a ton. Wet performance. Now, every tire is different. Every compound's a little different. Tread pattern is different. But do you see, if, you know, I'm going to get caught in mountain passes on the wet, does one ratio of tire perform better than others?
On the road, yep. In the dual sport tire world, there's not a ton of tires that like that wet weather performance is like a selling point that they use. There's a lot of like road tires, like, you know, your Michelin Road 6, that like, oh, it's the best in wet weather. But for general dual sport tires, the more on-road capability that you have, like 80% on-road, is going to be better in the wet conditions, because if you have the big old like knobbies and a bunch of gaps between all the different pieces of tread, it's going to like not hook up as good on like wet weather conditions. So that's something to take into account as well. If you're riding to the trails, doing something gnarly, coming back home and it's wet, if you got a really aggressive tire on there, it might be kind of a sketchy ride back home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought of a question, guys, and I'll mark this in the video, and we're going to go through some of these, and Kyle's going to talk about them. But if I said, give me, based on your experience, best all-around tire. I'm going to do a little bit of dirt, maybe some dirt. I'm going to ride it to cross the country. I'm going to do some two-up. Best all-around, like, give me your number one tire.
Number one is tough, but I got three in mind, if that works. Trailmax Mission from Dunlop is a really good 50-50. The Tractionator GPS from Motoz Z is really good. And then the Tractionator Adventure from Motoz Z is really good as well. A little more off-road oriented than those two, but it's still like a stiff compound tire.
So it sounds like
good mileage out of it.
Sounds like we got some competition between Dunlop and. So I used to say Motoz Z. I've heard Motoz. I don't know the exact pronunciation, but you know, I have run the Motoz Tractionator Adventures. Those are great. I ran the Dunlop Missions 50-50s. Those are great. Lasted forever. I did find that the Motoz was a little better in the dirt. But jumping to it, guys, I really wanted to get into this educational piece, and what we're going to do is Kyle's going to talk about some tires, and we're going to do some B-roll stuff, give you some close-ups. We're going to start from left to right. We're not going to go through every single one of these, but I just really want you to give you some high and low points and a little bit of, you know, about this tire as we start from sort of the most street-oriented adventure tire, street-oriented, all the way to, you know, the Tractionator Ralls, like, let's get our dirt bike on, right? And then we'll talk about what's new for 2024 with a Dunlop tire. So, Kyle, if you could, let's start with this Continental.
Yep.
Conti Trail Attack 3. To me, this looks like a straight-up street bike tire, something I would run on a street bike back in the day. So I didn't realize this was an adventure tire. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it definitely is obviously more road oriented than off road, like 90 to 95% on road. This is kind of what you'll get the best mileage, best like on-road performance, and best wet weather handling. They call them like siphoning lines. It's kind of like a water dispersion sort of technology. So these are really good if you're doing primarily on road, maybe like some light gravel roads. I wouldn't do much more than that because you're going to get a little sketchy. But yeah, Trail Tech 3s are popular. Other tires that are kind of like it is like the Michelin Anakee 3, and then they're just coming out with the Anakee Road. That'll come out in the next couple weeks, I want to say. Pearly Scorpion Trail 2s are all kind of in the same category of those.
So this category is more like very street oriented. Like I have a gravel driveway. But
Yeah.
other than that, so you're getting a lot of longevity. What kind of mileage should you expect out of the Conti Attacks?
Definitely kind of depends on the bike that you're putting it on for sure. A heavier
Yeah.
bike will get less mileage, but I'd say anywhere between like 3 to like 6,000 miles is probably a fair estimate. 7 maybe if you got a real light kind of adventure bike. But
Okay. So the next set of tires that we have here, we've got the Michelins and the Continentals. I think these are sort of, like you said, in the same category.
yeah, these 3 are pretty close. These 2 are pretty much the same tire. These are both TKC 70s from Continental. This one is TKC 70 Rocks. So it's basically like this one here. You can kind of see it has this center like tread line that it kind of. So when you're riding on the road, this is what it's wearing on when you're riding on a straight line. This one's kind of got more like knobby kind of characteristics. So it's a little more better. It's a little more aggressive for like off-road riding, but they're both really similar. And then these 2 are very close.
And this is the Michelin
Anakee Adventure.
Anakee Adventure. Okay, so these would be more like, are these considered like an 80-20 type of tire?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
so
80% on road. Yep.
80% on road and 20% off road. Okay, so these tires generally are going to give you more mileage.
Yep.
And somewhat dirt capability. It's like
Yeah.
light.
Yeah, like you could take like, your dirt roads going up into Rampart Range, something like that, but wouldn't hit any sort of single track probably. I mean, you could, of course, you could hit single track with this if you wanted to.
You could hit single track with slicks.
Yeah, if you felt like it.
You can do what you want, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you can do anything once.
Yep.
That's what I've learned through life, Kyle. You can do anything once.
Yep, that's true.
So we've got sort of our least aggressive. This is almost like a 90-10. Then we've got our 80-20s. And now we're getting into the Tractionator GPS, the Trailmax Mission. These are kind of our 50-50s.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about these, the advantages and, the application.
Yeah, so 50-50s are going to be the best, it's not like best on the road or best off road. It's like good at both, right? So you get good mileage on the road, you get good handling in wet weather, good handling-ish, and then it'll wear pretty normally if you're riding on the road. But then if you're riding off road, doing gravel roads, like ATV wide trails and stuff like that, you can have like the confidence that you're not going to be just sliding around everywhere.
But one interesting thing about this, the Motoz, is that this one, I think you can flip them.
Yep. So this one has kind of a weird piece of technology on it. So it's got a dual direction technically. So one direction is more of a 50-50 kind of option. I believe it'll be spinning this way as you're looking at it. So it has like the center tread. That's what it's going to be wearing on when you're riding on the road. And then you can flip it the other way, and then it kind of almost has these little like scoop looking sort of things. And that's a little bit more off-road oriented, maybe to like a 60 to 70% off-road. So you get a little more hookup on the gravel roads.
A little more hookup. Okay. Nice. So that goes back and forth. So the 50-50 guys, I've had experience with the Trailmax missions. Actually, some of my most popular videos, not that I'm like a super popular guy, but have been related to tires. So I know that people are super interested in tires.
Nice.
And I've run, I think, 3 sets of the Trailmax missions. All 3 had like crazy mileage out of them.
Yeah.
Super good. Then I went to the Tractionator Adventures for Motoz, and I think slight advantage dirt, but why wouldn't they, right? With the knobs
Yeah, a
on
little
them.
more aggressive.
But I think, to your point, I said, well, give me your number 1 tire. I think the Trailmax Mission, I don't know if it's the number 1, but it's probably in the conversation.
Yeah, it's up there. That's for
Here we have the Tractionator Rall. So these would be the most aggressive, right?
Yeah, as far as what we keep in the store here, yeah. These are really popular among like the BDR crowd.
The BDR crowd. So could somebody like myself on a GS run these?
You could, yeah.
So talk a little bit about these tires. I'm going to have to B-roll this because I can't stand here and hold a bicep curl for a minute.
Yeah,
But yeah,
no,
talk
it's
a little bit
fair.
about these tires.
Yeah, so RallZs from Motoz or Motoz, whatever you want to say, are one of the more aggressive tires that we keep here, 80% off-road probably. So softer compound, so you get good hookup on on whatever kind of dirt you're going to throw at it, single track, ATV trails, gravel roads, stuff like that. Since it's softer, you're not going to get, as much life out of it. If you're riding primarily on the road, it might kind of start to wear kind of funky. Like I've seen them kind of cup a little bit if you're riding more on road than off road. But if you're looking for a tire that you can trust in some pretty gnarly conditions, that would be the one.
So based on your recommendation, I'm doing the BDR, which I'm going to do a few this year. This is the tire I need to move to.
Yeah, I'd say so.
What would be the advantage of a tire like this? And I think I have a generic answer in my mind. But what is the step up from, say, the Tractionator Adventure? Which, if you just glanced at it, somebody that didn't know motorcycles would be like, oh, it's the same tire. Big knobs on it, big lugs. What is it? Is it the compound or what is it?
It's a little bit of the compound is a little bit different. The Adventure's a little bit stiffer, so you can get a little more mileage out of it. And then if you kind of put them up side by side, the knobbies on these ones, the center knobbies, they're spread out more and they're kind of like staggered, like they aren't like straight down the tire. Whereas on the Adventure, they're kind of more like straight. So that's they say it's supposed to help kind of get you more traction off road, kind of dig into the dirt a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, with that, I actually have a whole other topic I want to get into while I got you, but we need to talk about new for 2024. So did they have the Raids in 23?
They did towards the end, yeah. I think they came out in like September, October.
Right, well, let's yank this guy out because I'm super interested in this tire. Dunlop Trailmax Raid. So when I hear about the Raids, I'm thinking, is this the upgraded Mission? What is this tire? Why is it cool? Why should somebody consider this for 2024?
Yeah, so it's not based off the Mission, the Trailmax Mission, I would say. It's kind of similar to they have a tire called the D908. It's kind of like, I think they call it like a rally tire, but it's more so for off-road for sure. It's Dunlop's first tire to have what they call I think it's high silica. So it's like a additive to a tire where it kind of like, it basically requires no break-in time. Like it's like you start riding and it's supposed to heat up and it's supposed to grip on everything. So that might be kind of a cool feature to think about if you want a tire that's good in off-road but can also be good in like wet weather. Michelin's real big on that. They have like the silica compound on all of their tires. So they get real good hookup. That's kind of what they're known for. But
it says here, unequaled wet performance. That's a bold statement.
Yeah. So that's Dunlop's first tire to use that element, I guess, in their tires. So that's kind of that was one of their big selling features when they first came out.
So I guess in the ratio category, we know the Trailmax Mission is a 50-50, half and half. What would you consider the Raid?
Probably like 70-80% off-road.
Oh wow, okay. So would the Raid be comparable to, say, Motoz's Tractionator Adventure, which is like, I think, a 70-30 or something?
Yeah, I'd almost say it'd be in between the Tractionator Adventure and the Tractionator RallZ. It's kind of like right in between those two. Not as aggressive as the RallZ, but more aggressive than the Adventure, so you'll still get better performance off-road than you would on-road. Yeah.
I think for us that love Dunlop, so I've ridden many tires. Michelin's, love those for sport bikes, and I think actually I had Dunlop sport bike. You get used to a certain profile, but they're diehard Dunlop fans, and like, well, the only thing I had was the Trailmax Mission, which you can do some dirt in. But now there's a new option in the Raid, where it's like, look, I want to do more dirt and still have the street option. So I think the Raid kind of fills that gap.
It does. Yeah, you're totally right.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Kyle, the tire education has been spectacular. I think you all will agree. But I want to get into one last topic, since you are a pro dirt bike racer. So made a video the other day talking about using the rear brake, and I was actually talking to a guy that used to race. Well, do you remember when it was pro AMA racing? So this guy raced at the Daytona 200, has pro license. He was talking about rear brake. So when we talk about dirt applications, I am a street guy, come from doing track days. I did some club racing, and the BMW is the first bike where I've done trails and stuff like that. Advice to guys like me that in middle age pick up an adventure bike. Now we want us to do some dirt riding, but man, this dirt stuff I didn't grow up riding dirt bikes. It's freaky.
Yeah.
Right? It's different.
Especially on a 700-pound bike too. Right?
Yeah, especially on an elephant, right? And then the bike's sliding around, and I'm like, oh my God, I take the traction control off, and I'm using the rear brake and all that. And, without saying, give me a crash course, but what are some of your top tips to guys that, like, look, we're not out racing dirt bikes, but we also didn't grow up riding dirt bikes. Top tips for riding in the dirt on a big bike and just sort of keeping it upright, man.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to braking, like the front brake is still your best friend. Doing off-road stuff, they still give you the 2 rotors on the front so you can get better stopping power. Because that's kind of how I've always learned to kind of like drive with the front and steer with the rear, if that kind of makes sense. So like using acceleration and steady throttle to kind of steer with the rear, like coming out of corners, and then using your front brake to kind of dig the tire into the ground to like make it through corners. Everything give you a little more front end stability from traction, I guess. So I'm always riding the front brake.
Interesting.
But that's one of the things I like to think about. But then, you know, rear brake comes into hand too when you're doing, you know, more trail riding kind of stuff. I do more of the motocross scene now, but like rear brake, you can use it to, you know, lock it up and kind of spin yourself around like a tight corner. If you can lock it up and then kind of feather the throttle, you could almost kind of get to spinning and almost like drift it a little bit and make like a quicker corner. It's probably tough to do it on a 700-pound adventure bike. Right. I mean, I haven't ridden anything like that before, but that's kind of what I've just grown up learning and figuring out.
So you say that and you drive with the front, steer with the rear.
Yep. And
then, you know, like in dirt, loose dirt or gravel, I'm thinking if I touch this front brake, the front's going to fold, I'm going to go down. It's over. But you're telling me that's not exactly the case.
Not exactly, no. Like, I mean, if you're going down like a, you know, dry gravel road and you're doing 40 miles an hour and you're leaning hard and then it starts coming into a steeper turn, you just lock up the front, then yeah, you're probably going to kind of skid. So it's not like you're locking the front up all the time. Like it's like I'm using it to kind of help me. Like I usually brake, still going in a straight line, but you can still feather the front brake while going through corners. Cause yeah, like even though you are putting more weight on the front end, it's a good thing, especially if you're on a little bit more like tacky kind of dirt, cause it's digging the front end into the ground, so you're having more traction, and then you can have a little more trust in your front tire, I guess, and then pull yourself out of the corner.
I want to let you have the last word. You know, performance cycle related, anything excited happening for 2024, anything you want to let folks know, anything going on?
Yeah, I mean, just trying to keep the good name going, I guess. They've been able to keep this going for over 4 decades. Try to keep, you know, tires are a big thing, so we try to keep as many tires as we can in stock, and just, yeah, providing the good customer service and good experience that I think we've kind of come to be known for.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm here, man, because I've always had good customer service, always had a good experience here. Cool. And just to let everybody know, if you don't live in Colorado, they can still order from you. You guys will ship.
Yep. Yeah, we got a website, performancecycle.com. It's got everything that we keep in stock in our store here in Centennial. If you are looking for something specific, definitely give us a call. We can get pretty much any of the big name brands that are out there. We can always order it in, drop ship it straight to your door, have it there in a couple of days. But yeah.
Outstanding. Well, hey man, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, sir.
I gotta say, we might have to come back and do another one. Like, yeah. I think it's fantastic. I got an education. I'm sure all of you got an education. If you have any comments, questions, drop them down. I'll make sure to answer them in Kyle's name, just so we're straight, you know. But I'm not. No, thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like, subscribe button. Support the channel. Make sure to hit Performance Cycle Up. Support them. Fantastic organization. Been around 40 years.
Yes, sir.
You're gonna do another 40. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.